Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, and welcome to the November 2nd, 2011 meeting of the Lake Forest Building Review Board. I am Peggy Vignacchi, Chairman of the Building Review Board. At this time, I ask members of the board to introduce themselves.
Michael Black.
Maddie Dugan, 3rd Ward.
Stuart Trey, 2nd Ward.
Monica Ruggles, 1st Ward.
Charlie King.
And would our members of staff please introduce themselves also?
Megan O'Neill. Kathy Suryak.
Thank you. The board is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, architects, neighbors, and interested citizens, to continue the long tradition that allows Lake Forest residents and businesses to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and landscaped streetscapes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that come before this board are those in which the property owners are requesting a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by the code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that could not fully be resolved by city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of building permits are issued by the city without the need for any board review. Thus, this board typically deals with the most challenging and sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and fair meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures, and all parties will be provided an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined on the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a review process that is thorough, fair, and without unnecessary delay. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the July 6, 2011 meeting. Are there any comments regarding those meeting minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I move we approve the minutes as published of the July 6, 2011 meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is a continued petition. It's a request for approval of new signage for Crystal Point Condominiums located on the west side of Western Avenue between Franklin Place and Thomas Place. The owners are Crystal Point residents. The representatives are Diane Karzas, chairman of the sign project, and Steve Slater, representing Signs Now. For this petition, I will recuse myself, and Charlie King will chair this petition. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would the petitioner like to come forward, and the representatives, and present?
I am Steve Slater with Signs Now, and Diane will be talking about the landscaping plan. I'm going to talk about the signage. And as we discussed September, this is a continuation from the Crystal Point, the corner signs that we had proposed a couple months ago. We had the recommendation from the board to redesign the signs, to make them smaller, to reposition them so they will blend in more with the surroundings, and to make them, originally we had them V-shaped signs, so they were two sign faces shaped in the shape of a V, and they were a little bit larger. And we now have scaled them down to, here, let me show you the layouts. This first one, there's going to be one sign at the northern and the southern corners of the property. The southern corner is Franklin and Western. And so this is actually a rendering showing you the size and the scale and the positioning. So this is what the new sign will look like, and you can see it's now the overall height is it's 40 inches, 40.5 inches from the ground to the top of the sign. From the ground to the bottom of the sign is 18 to 19 inches. And it's, the sign face itself is 22.5 tall by, I think it's 33 inches wide. And it's the same sign at the other corner, which is the Thompson and Western corner. This one, because of the positioning of a mailbox on the corner of Western and Thomas, and also a big tree there, in order to make it visible, we moved it in, and you can kind of tell from, actually I do have a landscape, an overhead showing the approximate location. You can see the little X here. That's the location of the new sign at Thomas and Western. And here is the location of the new sign at the other southern corner. So we pretty much listened to what your advice was, your recommendation was. We scaled the sign way back and made it a single-face sign. It's still made out of 1.5 inch HDU, high-density urethane, and the posts now, instead of being 4-inch square cedar posts, we're going to make them 2-inch by 2-inch wood posts. So it's pretty straightforward. And then we also took your recommendation, and Diane's landscaping firm developed a landscaping plan, which she can explain to you better than I can. So I'll let Diane talk about the landscaping.
Okay. And I'm Diane Karzas, the sign chairman. Rocco Fiore, who does all of the landscaping for our 11-acre property, has come up with a plan. I'll show you each of the locations, and then I'll show you the plantings themselves. This is Franklin. All right, this is the Franklin sign. You can see the curve, which is coming from the existing landscaping around the proposed sign. It's of a product, a ground cover called Stephanandra. Very low growing. It thickens, but it does not grow tall, so that it will not obstruct the sign, which is really very low to the ground. At the other end, you can again see that they've curved this around to feed into the existing sign, which is existing landscaping. The Stephanandra itself, and I'm not sure how much you can tell from this, but except to say that it is very shrubby and low growing, and if you can see this one, you can see it against a staircase, so you can see that it's very low to the ground. Turn it. Which way?
There.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh. Right. And can you see that that's a stair step? And it shows you here how low to the ground it is. So it won't affect the sign itself. From a personal point of view, I would have liked to have seen the sign up a bit higher, because I'm afraid that people aren't going to really be able to see it from the road, especially if we have a lot of snow. It's sitting very, very low. The signs are sitting very, very low, considerably lower than the other 6 signs. I'm presuming that if you did a site visit, you did see the 6 existing building signs that were approved at the last meeting and have been installed. I don't think it has to, that these signs should be as tall as those signs. high up from the ground, but I think they should be higher. And I think they really should be several inches larger so that they're clearly visible. Now, do you have any questions you'd?
We're going to go to the staff next, and then we'll come back
Okay.
with questions for you if we have any. Thank you. Staff, any comments, questions, concerns?
Thank you, Board Member King. As was mentioned, this is a modified proposal that's back before the board since the last meeting. The petitioner did take the comments that the board made and have made the adjustments. Hopefully you're able to drive by the property this weekend and see one of the mock-ups installed on the southern end of the development. The current proposal is for a single-face sign. It's primarily to identify the building along Western. Having a sign such as this has been done in other developments in the area along Laurel Avenue. I think in this case, the landscaping is critical and it's very important. The landscaping that's proposed will help the sign settle into the site, make it seem like it's part of the overall site design for the development, and be low maintenance. So I think those are two important aspects for the landscaping. With respect to timing, the goal is to install the sign later this year if approved by the board this evening. And while we'll have an approved landscape plan on file, the actual landscape material may not be able to be planted until next spring, just due to the time of year. But I think the landscape plan that they're showing now incorporates the sign into an existing bed and will give it a nice base for the sign itself. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time, but we are recommending approval of the sign as proposed.
Board members, now's a chance to ask Megan anything, or the petitioner as well.
I have one for the petitioner. I did drive by the site and I saw the mock-up, and I saw the X number of address signs that are in front. I took it that these were to be identical, and I think in your discussion you said that the posts were going to be 2 by 2. I didn't get out and measure, but I have a feeling that the address signs are larger.
Yeah, they're 4 by 4s. The sign face on the other side is about.
Mr. Slater, could you please come up to the microphone just so we can?
Yeah, the sign faces on those address signs is considerably larger. Plus, the posts that we use really already there. So
I see.
We didn't remove the old steel posts from the ground.
Oh, okay. All right.
And there was nothing wrong with them, so we built sleeves to go around them, so they need to be much bigger to go around the existing posts.
Okay.
But the new sign face, the new signs, I mean, they're much smaller. And there really is, it would really look overwhelming to the sign if you put a 4 by 4 post.
Okay, that's good reasoning. I just looked at them and I said, well, they're the same thing they already have, you know,
Yeah.
but they're not.
Yeah, it's the same style, and
Yeah.
initially what we proposed was a bigger sign that you could see from both directions,
Yeah.
from Western and from the side streets, but.
I understand. Thank you.
So, could you please clarify that? Are you saying the Crystal Point sign, the sign face itself is smaller than the address signs that are there?
Yeah, the sign that we proposed that there's a mock-up of, the mock-up is to scale, it's an actual size. It's 22 and a half tall by 33 wide.
And about
And
how
the
much?
sign face of the address sign is what was it? I think, I don't know if I have it handy, but I think it's like 40 inches wide versus 33 and a half inches wide, so it's about 6 and a half, 7 inches wider.
Is there-
And, it's 22 and a half inches tall, I think they're 33, so it's about 10 inches taller, so they are.
The address signs are.
Yeah, the address
Yeah,
signs
because
are-
when I was driving by, the address signs seemed pretty
Right.
tall, and then when I saw the mock-up, I was like,
Right,
it's
that was based on-
considerably smaller. And
Yeah, that was based on your recommendations from the
It
last
was-
meeting, because the first mock-ups were too large and too tall off the ground.
Was that, from the last meeting, was the V sign, was it much bigger than the address signs?
No,
Or
it was
it?
it was a few inches bigger than the other signs.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Is the height of the text the same as the address signs?
The height of the text, it's actually probably smaller. I don't know if I didn't call out the size, I don't have that.
Okay.
But everything has been scaled down, so I'm assuming it's a little bit smaller.
Okay, now's the time for anybody from the public that would like to speak on this topic.
Yes, I'm Lynn Newman. I'm president of Crystal Point for the 11 acres. And we did a little research, or we tried to be up to date. I've lived here for 50 years, so I really appreciate all of you making sure we don't go off the deep end as far as structural problems and other things that come up. We are a GR1 zone, transition zoning. Adjacent to our property is commercial property. We have 204 unit owners in our property. With the difference in this new mock sign that we just put in, it's not visible. You have to be right in front of that sign on Western Avenue because it's back so far in front of the bushes. It is not in the lawn or up a little bit further, closer to the street or the corner. So I really think if we could position it a little closer, adjacent to the corner or a little bit in on the lawn, I think passerbys or people who do not know what the name of our complex is, we just have the addresses now on the new signs, and the new signs are so much bigger, our address signs, compared to the mock sign we have on the corner. And I really would like you to consider moving it up. I don't believe it would create a nuisance or distract any of the drivers' attention going by. There's no lights on it. All it does is signify Crystal Point. And other than that, the new sign does not have anything about Crystal Point on it. So therefore, we have talked back and forth as a committee and before we even presented, and we tried to keep on the guidelines that you have set for us. But I really would like you to consider putting the sign out just a little bit so people can see them rather than it blending in with the bushes, which our bushes are pretty tall, pretty high, and the sign is smaller than the bushes. The bushes are higher. So I really would like you to completely consider that.
I have pictures too that I should show.
Okay.
Here's the mock-up in place.
This should let you know that the bushes are much higher.
So this gives you an indication of how small the sign actually is, because it's not even covering the top. You know, it goes barely to the top of the bushes, and you see that we set it quite a bit back from where we had originally proposed for the V-shaped signs. And this is the mock-up in place at the other. Actually, do I have the? No, that's wrong.
Just the opposite, I think.
No, I think these are both the same picture.
Okay.
I don't think I have a
Same
good picture of the other corner because we didn't actually do the mock-up over there. But this is basically the picture, the same corner, Franklin and Western, but from the street. So you can see it is a little hard to read.
It is.
Right at the edge of the curb.
You'd have to be right in front of that on Western Avenue. And we've always planned, no matter what sign we put up, we always planned on landscaping it. And we had contacted Fiore prior to us presenting this separate sign. So we definitely would like to do that, but I really would like you to consider having it come out just a little bit into the lawn versus right back by the bushes. And being larger would be, if we could even, I know you don't want to go too large, but I mean, our street signs, our address signs are good size, and we just replaced the existing signs that have been there for 37 years. So we tried to abide by the ruling that was 37 years ago. So we didn't go crazy with size or distraction or anything else. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for the input. I guess I'll take a little bit of a lead here in that did we set restrictions where they could place the signs, Megan? It's been a little while since we addressed this topic.
I think the board was generally talking about the importance of landscaping, the importance of visibility, and finding a location that really blends into the existing site. So in this case, the option to utilize an existing planting bed and install a sign adjacent to that planting from the staff's perspective was a good solution. I think the mock-up certainly is a good tool to allow us to see what in fact the visibility of the sign is. I think the size could be increased to increase the visibility, but I think it is important to allow a cohesive landscape plan with the sign.
Was there a issue with the size of the sign that we said you had to be 33 inches by X by?
No, I think the discussion that the board had at the previous meeting was primarily a reaction to the mock-up that they installed, and it was a much different sign. It had 2 sign faces. There's a lot more sign to review.
Sure.
So this sign is a single-face sign. It's facing parallel to Western. I think part of the reason for pushing it back into the landscape bed was to allow for greater visibility from the street as you approach. But because of that, maybe the size of the sign does need to increase to allow those cars to actually see it.
Okay. Board members, I think we're in a position here where the petition before us is not necessarily what the petitioner wants to have us approve, but I think maybe they'd like an indication amongst board members if we'd be open to some of these suggestions, maybe make it a little larger, pulling out towards the street, so maybe some people could opine or ask questions as needed.
Personally, I think the location is fine. I think if you get signs too close to the street, parked cars would obscure the view of a car driving by. So I think the location is fine, but I do think they could be bigger.
Yeah, I mean, when I drove by, I definitely felt that the Crystal Point's sign was too small compared to the address signs. I felt that, the main community sign should be at least as large as the address signs, if not slightly larger. And especially like if the posts are the 2x2 and the address posts are 4x4, it just seems out of scale to me, and I think it would benefit by being increased in size.
I think I wasn't at the meeting where we told them to reduce the size, and again, that was a different, as I understand, a different type of sign. I'm not sure that everyone's going to agree here, but then I think we need to know what, if you want to increase the size, I would not be totally not in favor of that. I mean, I would favor it, but we'd have to continue this, and they'd have to come back with another set of plans as to what they want to do.
Excellent point.
This can go on far too long for everybody, but if that's what the homeowners association wants, propose it. I think I agree with Maddie. I'm not too crazy about moving closer to the street.
Would the board be willing to accept perhaps a sign as large but not to exceed the sign of the addresses in the identical locations?
If I could interrupt,
Surely.
I have that measurement, and that's what I would propose from a design point of view. So it won't be overwhelming, because the V-shaped signs were a different shape, a different style of sign, and they were a little bit overwhelming to that corner, I think, and that may have been part of the issue with the signs itself, not the size so much, but that it was a V-shape.
The V-shape.
The address signs are 26 inches tall by 38 inches wide, and they do sit on 4x4s right now. Probably don't need to have them on 4x4s. Since we're not surrounding existing posts, we could probably put them on 2x4s. So they won't be, like as large, they won't look as large as the address signs. The address sign posts, I think, look a little bit large, but that's because we were using existing steel posts. I think we can sit them on 2x4s, it would be
excuse me, they're 27.5 inches tall?
The current address signs that we just installed last month are 26 inches tall by 38 inches wide. That's
38.
That's
okay.
That's the sign face. Now, I am assuming you want us to keep I think that Diane wants to raise the height too, because right now, this sign only measures about less than 20 inches from the ground to the
It's
bottom.
18, it says 18 on your
Right,
drawing.
right.
And the
And the address signs are considerably higher. I don't have that measurement, but that's considerably higher. I don't know if it has to be higher, much, that high, but it probably could be a little bit higher than the 18 inches.
Your point on the snow is a good point, and I mean, if it's 27, we could still get 27 inches of snow, but you can over-design things too, so. I personally would have no objection. I kind of assumed they would be the same size. I didn't measure, I just drove by.
And I can always do the similar type of a mock-up. I mean, I'd like to expedite this. If we wait,
I understand.
if I wait till December's meeting, we're trying to install these before the first frost. Otherwise, I can't do it, so. I can do something like this pretty easily, using just kind of superimpose the new sign face onto this backdrop. So you can, and I can send it to the board or send it to Megan and she can distribute it.
Megan, any procedural thoughts here, how we could expedite this, give them preliminary approval, subject to a few things, or?
There are a couple options. I think one option would be to approve the sign outright with the dimensions that were approved for the address signs, but in the same configuration that's shown here, same landscape plan, same location. The other option is to appoint a subcommittee and see if the subcommittee can have the authority to approve the project based on the direction that the board gives at the meeting.
Thoughts?
I think it's a waste of a subcommittee.
Agreed.
I don't have any problem with Megan's first suggestion, is that we allow them to increase to the size that we okayed for the address signs. Whether they're on 2x2s or 4x4s, it would be their decision. And I think the location where these signs are is a good location for the new larger sign.
I do have a problem with the 2x2 posts.
Okay, all right.
I think that, they're 4x4 now, and that's the main sign, and I think it should be consistent throughout. The rest of it,
Good point.
if it's all the same height and same size, to put them on spindly 2x2s looks temporary to me.
I just want to clarify the size of the sign. So the width of the sign would go from 33 to 38, so you're talking 5 inches wider and 3.5 inches higher.
Right.
Mhm.
And then the height of the font would be.
I can indicate that on the mock-up that if you want me to do that. I would just be guessing right now, so I don't know.
As long as it just proportionally fits the sign. And then I think the location of the sign, I think it's fine with me. I would prefer not to see it come closer to the sidewalk.
I think you're also talking height from the ground to the base of the sign, which is 18 inches.
To have it
and we were
raised some,
discussing that
to keep it more proportionate.
it's more proportional, you could put it the same as your address signs.
And if we have approval pretty rapidly, Rocco Fiore feels that because there's going to be so little digging involved, just 2 holes basically, that they could go ahead with the landscaping based on the kind of weather we've been having. That could happen in the immediate future, so that everything would be finished by the time the sign faces, which
Don't
take
plan
about
on the
3
weather,
weeks.
it's November.
Well, but the sign faces are Steve, do the sign faces take about 3 weeks from the time of approval? We have 3 weeks of delay until the sign faces are ready to be installed, but the landscaping could be done before that.
Okay, thank
So
you.
That would finish the whole project.
Okay. What do we say, board members? Bring it to a head here.
Well, I have one more question for the petitioner. Are 4x4s a problem to be consistent with the address signs?
Well, I would have to talk to my designer again, but I think we probably can. I think I would recommend like a 2x4 rather than a 4x4. Like I mentioned before, we used a 4x4 for the address signs because
they were there.
They were there,
Yeah.
except for one sign that we moved. So we had to wrap an existing steel post. But in this case, we're not wrapping, and the signs still aren't that big, even if we increase the size. I think a 2x4, two 2x4s is gonna be plenty. They'll be painted black, they'll blend in with the sign itself and with the background, the surroundings.
So the 2-inch dimension is from front to rear.
Right. Well, no, yes, no. The way they're probably gonna be installed is horizontally.
The wide part
The
will
wide
face the
part
street?
will face the street.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right.
right, that's what he said.
Well, you're still gonna see that it's a 2x4.
You still see it as a
It's not
2x4.
like
Yeah.
it's always seen in elevation.
What's the problem with a 4x4?
Yeah.
I mean, if these are cedar posts,
Well, we could probably use it. I just need to talk to the guys who are the experts. I'm not the expert, to be honest with you. And I just think a 4x4 is a little bulky looking on the other signs.
but it's consistent with the others.
But to be consistent, we can certainly use a 4x4.
I tend to recommend a 4x4. I think I agree with the.
I just like the consistency.
Okay.
I think it makes sense. Is there a motion in this discussion? Someone?
I'll do one. What were you gonna do?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I move that we allow the signs to go in at the existing locations with the dimensions equivalent to that of the existing address signs, which are roughly, can't read my pencil, but 27 by 38.
38 by.
Anyway, and they'd be consistent in height off of the ground of that of the address signs, which is slightly greater than the 18 inches. And
4x4.
I don't think I've left anything out.
The 4x4 post.
And
Landscape plan.
the landscape plan will proceed as it has been.
With the post.
And the 4x4.
And the post would be 4x4.
Do I have a second?
Oh, wait. May we interject just a clarification on the motion? With the increase in height off of the ground, I think it's important for the board to discuss the landscaping, because as proposed, they're proposing a very low landscape material that would have, allowed the sign to kind of sink into that landscaping. If you start raising those posts out of the ground more, a different type of landscaping might be appropriate, and I think the board should weigh in on that so that we can appropriately modify the documents when it comes in for permit.
What was the landscaping plan on for the existing address signs, or the address signs that went in?
There is no landscaping.
Yeah. So I guess I don't follow why we need that.
At the last meeting, the board spoke strongly about the need for those identification signs to blend into the existing landscaping and to look like they were always meant to be there, and not as was mentioned, they weren't a temporary fixture on the site. So I do think it's an important topic for you to discuss and at least just clarify for our purposes.
Well,
Could that be a staff approval or staff review of the landscape plan as part of the?
It certainly could. We just wanted some clear direction from the board as to what your expectations would be.
well, I'll amend my motion to provide that the landscaping plan be submitted to staff for approval. Is that acceptable?
And then
Sure.
The plant material be modified as needed based on the elevation of the sign.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations. And please do submit those, the final landscape plan to staff for approval, and hopefully the weather holds up for you folks.
Thank you, Charlie. The next item on the agenda is a new petition. It's a request for approval of the demolition of the existing residence and approval of a replacement structure at 320 South Green Bay Road. Owner is Patrick Winters, and the representative is Frank Klepitsch, architect. Before we begin, I'd like to ask our board if there are any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts.
Yes, I'd like to recuse myself because of our firm's involvement with this project.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Frank Klepitsch. I'm an architect, and this is Jeff Preshaw. He's an associate of mine, and he's going to be helping me with the PowerPoint presentation tonight. We're looking for approval from the board tonight for the demolition of an existing home at 320 South Green Bay Road and a proposed new replacement home. So, Jeff, if you'll take us to the next slide. I'm going to kind of go through sort of a roadmap here and take you through the existing site and home and some of the key features there. And then we'll go right into the proposed site and new home design. In the existing site and home, we'll go through some of the homes that are surrounded in the neighborhood. I'm sure that you've all been there. Some of the key features of the survey and some site photos. In the proposed site and new home design, I'd like to take you through the design statement and the concept for the design and how that translates into the final site design and new home design and landscape design. So this is the neighborhood, some site photos of the neighborhood. The house is located on the west side of Green Bay Road, approximately equidistant from Wesley Road to the south and Awencia Road to the north. That line and railroad track on the upper right-hand corner is Western Avenue. There are 4 homes that are particularly surround the existing site. The one on the east, which is shown on the bottom 2 slides, is a very modern home. The second floor is supported by pilotis. It almost looks like Corbu had designed it in the 1920s. And then the upper slide is a colonial home, which is directly south of the site. Pretty classical, typical colonial, probably built in the 1950s. The slide to the right of the plan is sort of a French chateau design, a mini French chateau. And the 2 slides on the bottom are pictures of the home to the immediate east of the site. And that comes off as sort of an Italianate a mini palazzo. And I guess the point here is that all the homes surrounding the site are all different and of different styles. So, and we think our home kind of fits in that same tone. This is the existing survey, plat of survey of the property. And the 4 points I'd like to make here is that the site is highlighted by a really long, cool axial driveway. It's about 260 feet long by 40 feet wide. And then it opens up into the site itself, which is about 370 feet by 170 feet. 370 feet in the east-west direction and 170 feet in the north-south direction. The house is located pretty much on the east side of the site on a flat plateau, which is sort of a natural place for it. And that's where we're actually going to put our new house. And the drainage on the site kind of moves from the northwest to or the northeast to the southwest. It's sort of a diagonal. And the site is surrounded by very heavy, thick landscaping, which gives the existing house privacy and also the surrounding neighbors privacy from that location. This is the long driveway, the existing house. And just very briefly, we've gone through the demolition criteria, and It meets all 5 criteria. It was approved for demolition, I think, about 6 or 7 years ago, based on 2 reports, a structural report by Wiss, Jenny, and Elsner, and an environmental report, which we had updated, and it was included in your packets. Nothing has changed. In fact, the house has not been occupied since 2005. So it's just the conditions have just gotten worse. That's a photo from the west, photo from the south, and photo from the east. These next 3 photos show how densely wooded the perimeter of the site is. This looks out at the west yard, and you can see that there's no view of any of the neighbors' houses. And we don't plan on changing that. We pretty much plan on leaving it alone, in fact, enhancing some of the perimeter plantings on the south and east portion of the property. This is a photo of the entry drive as you're coming in from the main drive, and the north property line, which is also very dense in landscaping. And that's a photo of the south, photo looking south at the south neighbor. Okay. The next portion of the presentation is the design of the new home. And I'd like to go to the design statement. And this is probably the most important part of the presentation, at least in my eyes and the owner's eyes, from a design standpoint and an architectural standpoint. This is in your packet, but I'd like to highlight this. The concept of the site and building layout has been inspired by the Beaux-Arts style of organizing spaces and circulation along axial lines with visual termination points. Architects such as Howard Van Doren Shaw, H.T. Lindenberg, and David Adler used this style of planning on many home sites throughout Lake Forest in the early part of the 20th century. As one proceeds along the axes, the architecture slowly reveals itself through space, light, rhythm, texture, and sight. At the end of each axis, there is a place to arrive, either by sight or person. It is comparable to a wonderful novel which slowly leads you into the story and many great surprises along the way. So with this, as we go through the presentation of the design, I think I'll be able to go through it very quickly because it all flows back to that concept. I mean, I'd love to spend a half hour with this sketch, but I know I can't. The major things that are occurring here is that you have on the top of the page, there's a long axial line that comes down the driveway, actually from east to west, and it terminates in the motor court in front of the new home. Then there's a cross axis, which is perpendicular, which is centered on the entry itself and runs through the center of the house and through a garden, an open garden in the center of the location. And then from that center point, there's a long east-west axis which brings the entire site together. There's a terrace, some landscape steps, a pool, and a pool house to the west. Now, if you were to take a rectangular tube and turn it on its side, there are 3 tubes in the plan, each separated by space. The first tube, which is on the west side, runs east and west, and then there's a space or entry point or entry terrace between that and the second tube, which also houses spaces from the home. And then the third tube is the garage, which is set way back from the entry drive so that you don't read it when you enter onto the property. You'll essentially enter onto the property and see the 2 main tubes of the house with the space between them, which is the entry terrace. So you have a rhythm here, which is created. You have a space in front of the garage as you come down the entry drive, a mass, which is the first tube of the house, a terrace space, and then a third tube on the west side. And it all centers around a garden, an open garden, which has a walkway or interior cloister around it. So in that Beaux-Arts style, the proposed new residence, gardens, and pool have been designed to integrate into the existing site in a natural way. The intent of the proposed new design is to be sympathetic with the existing site conditions by way of circulation into the site, natural flow of water across the site, and orientation to the sun and natural vistas. This has been achieved by orienting spaces along axial lines in the Beaux-Arts style. So this is a plan, a clear plan without all of the concept lines, which shows the long drive, the entry or motor court, the main house with the three masses and space, and then you can see the terrace on the west side of the house, the landscape steps. That's all grass steps going down to the pool, and then the pool house terminating that axis. Is that 10 minutes? Okay. Any questions? Can I have a few more minutes to explain the elevation of the house? Come on, this is so much fun. Okay. So, Jeff, let's just go into the elevations. The house is basically designed as a French country house. The mansard roof brings all of the bedrooms into the roof line so that we can bring the eave line to the ceiling of the first floor, or the same line of the second floor. So it brings the eave line down to a very human scale, and then the bedrooms are kind of hidden into the roof itself with arched dormers that are copper topped. The lower elevation, the first floor, is cladded in brick, and all the windows and doors come down to the sill line, so all the windows look like French doors, and it's consistent around the house. The eave line also has corbels that wrap around the entire house, so the line is pretty much the same, except for the garage, which is lowered because it's of less importance to the house. So Jeff, you can take us to the next. Oh, in these slides, these are homes on Owensia Road. The upper left-hand corner is an older home. I don't know when it was built, maybe in the 20s or 30s, and it's a perfect example of this type of architectural style. It has a three-part facade. The entry is the center facade with the three dormers and the door in the center, and then there are two wings on each side. The mansard roof, and then this is a stucco base, but in the lower photo and to the right, that is a similar design, similar concept, three-part facade as well, entry in the center, and a whitewashed brick on the lower portion of the building, and then shingles on the second floor in the mansard. And that's kind of the style that we've kind of used to inspire the design here. The roof plan follows through. It's very clean and follows the concept. Floor plan, just to mention a couple things here, all of the main living spaces, or most of them, face the direction of the sun. On the east side, you have the study and staircase. There's a large window in the stairs to bring in sunlight into the hallways. And on the south side, the kitchen, family room, and the dining room and living room, which face west, will get sunlight pretty much all day. Second floor, the master bedroom is also facing south, and the east bedroom also faces south. There's a terrace that comes off the second floor bedroom. This is a section through the west-east cross-section, which shows the grading of the site. You can see that we're utilizing the low area of the site for the swimming pool, and then it rises up to the plateau of the house. The lower elevations are elevations of the pool house, which follows very similar. It follows the architecture of the house in that all of the windows simulate French doors, the center being French doors, and then the roof is a copper top roof, low slope. Massing model of the house. That's a view from the northwest. The first view was from the northeast. And then this just shows the overlays. We're very close on the north elevation and the south elevation in length. The house is The existing house is about 90 feet long, and the new house is about 101 feet long. On the short side, the existing house is, I think, 40 or 50 feet, and we're 68 feet wide. We're under the bulk. The total allowed is 6,835 feet, and our total is 6,733 with the pool house, so we're under by about 129 square feet. And we can just quickly go to the landscape plan. You know, here again, the dark green areas show the existing landscape, which is pretty dense and heavy around the perimeter. And we're enhancing the south property line and the east property line with white pines that are about 8 to 10 foot tall, which will help us deal with some of the understory, which has some openings in it. And then we have ornamental pears around the site.
Thank you, Mr. Klepitsch. At this time, we will have staff present their report.
Thank you, Chairman Vignacchi. This is a project that the Building Review Board actually reviewed several years ago. It was a demolition request and a replacement structure that was approved at that time, but the approvals have lapsed. No permits were issued for the work, and a new request is before the before the board this evening. The lot is not a standard lot. It's what we call a lot in depth. It doesn't have the standard street frontage. It's accessed by a narrow strip of land and opens up onto the buildable lot. It also has more restrictive setback requirements than your typical lot in the zoning district. This project, based on our preliminary review, it meets the setback requirements. It's under bulk. We also had the city arborist take a look at the landscape plan and finds that the landscape plan appears to meet the standards in the ordinance. He did identify the maple directly south of the proposed construction as potentially in danger of being negatively impacted with this construction. He has been in discussions with the petitioner, and based on those discussions, the landscape plan has been modified to account for the loss of that tree in the event that it does become damaged during construction. I should mention it's the intent of the petitioner to save that tree. It is part of their landscape design, but the plan is in compliance with the ordinance regardless of whether or not that tree remains. I think the packet that the petitioner put together is very comprehensive. The presentation this evening outlined the project pretty well. This is one where staff did encourage some three-dimensional drawings to help explain the depth of the elevations. It does appear that the architectural style is followed and the standards for design review are met with this petition. So we are recommending approval of both the demolition and the replacement structure with some pretty standard conditions in the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Megan. At this time, we'll take it to the board for any questions or clarification to the staff or the petitioner. And I will just start with one question for the petitioner. Is this structure on a slab or is there a basement?
Oh, there's a basement.
Please step forward. Thank you.
Yes, there's a basement.
Okay.
Pretty much, Jeff, if you could take us back to the floor plan. The basement, obviously there won't be a basement under the garage, but the basement will pretty much flow under the main portion of the house. The garage is here.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the roofing material. In the packet, I can't quite, it says wood, it's both wood shingles and slate are checked.
Yeah, we originally, when we did the packet, we were deciding between either wood shingles, this is on the roof portion on the mansard front,
Yes.
or slate, and since the packet was submitted, the owner has decided to go with wood shingles. although I'm still trying to talk them into slate. But, you know, from an architectural standpoint, either one works very well with the site. So we're asking for wood shingles at this point, with all copper trim, all the gutters and copper trim in the roof itself, or trim in the roof itself. Metal trim will be copper.
And the brick, the whitewashed brick would be as pictured in the other houses on Valencia?
Very similar. The first house was a stucco house, so it won't be stucco.
Right.
But the second house is a whitewashed brick, so it'll be very similar within that, depending on what range we can get. We actually make custom whitewash the brick to get the exact sort of color that we want. But it'll be very similar to the picture on the right-hand side.
Okay. And then when I was over at the site today, I did notice you can see the house to the south quite clearly, but you've got plans in place with your landscaping to fill that in?
Right. Let's go back to the landscape plan, Jeff. We're enhancing that entire south property line with white pines.
Okay.
So all of the dark green is existing.
All right.
And the lighter green sort of circles with the jagged edges, those are new white pines.
Okay. Great.
And we're doing the same on the east property line as well.
Okay.
I have a question for the petitioner. You're planning on a crushed stone driveway?
Yes.
Rather than, at present, it's asphalt now.
Correct.
And this is in keeping with the French chateau
Well, or the country house.
Okay.
You know, which is so prevalent in Lake Forest. You know, it was either we're going to use sort of a crushed granite stone, but you know, people like Lindenberg and Adler, they use that red river rock,
right,
and this crushed bluestone as well. And that's the whole concept of Lake Forest, is to make these homes sort of in the country. You know? That's
great. It's pervious, and so it'll probably help whatever drainage, if there is a drainage problem there.
Yeah.
Get rid of the asphalt, which sheds it. Okay, thank you.
I just had a couple of drawing plan clarifications. So specifically on the east elevation.
Sure.
I just want to verify if the elevation is correct or the floor plans. And the east elevation, you're showing on the first floor that there's windows flanking the fireplace at the study.
Correct.
But in the plan, you're only showing one window.
Well, there will be a window flanking each side of the fireplace. When we were doing this, you know, the elevations were most important. We did not pick up all the details inside the plan. We still have some work inside the house to do.
Okay, so
That won't change the shell of the house. It'll only be, you know, interior-wise.
Okay,
But
so
there will be two windows, right? A window on each side of the fireplace.
okay, so for the first floor, it's matching the elevation, and then if I take that up to the second floor, in the plan, you have two windows in the bedroom above, yet on elevation, you only have one dormer.
There will be another window up there.
So there'll be
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
dormer windows flanking the fireplace, and then the
Correct.
stair
Yeah.
window. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think, I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify that, okay. And then, and these are just kind of clarifications. If I look at the south elevation, off of the master bedroom, I see it's the kitchen that's extending outward, a kitchen bay, and then there's a deck above that. Is that correct?
It's the terrace, that second floor terrace is above the family room portion of the house.
On the south elevation?
This sort of fold. I'm sorry, that is directly over the bay of the breakfast bay of the kitchen.
So in plan, it's not
Yeah.
shown on the second floor?
Well, it's a flat roof. It doesn't come out on the second floor. So there's a flat roof over the first floor bay. So there won't be a bay on the second. I mean, there won't be it's not two-story, it's only one story.
Correct. So like when you look at the second floor plan off the master bedroom, you see a porch to the to the west of the master bedroom, but then there should also be a roof below
Right.
on the south side.
Exactly.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. We were only showing the second floor plan here and the terrace off the master.
Okay.
But, you know, you would see a roof, right,
Okay, I just,
from the second floor.
okay. And then on those areas where the first floor comes up and there's the newel posts, you know, the corner posts, those will be brick, right?
Correct.
And then you'll have the metal railing
Yeah.
attaching into the brick. And what is the roofing material over the garden room?
That's copper.
Okay, like a
That's
standing seam.
It's yeah, standing seam copper, and that same, let's just, thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't have time to go over the architecture of that. So Jeff, let's go to the east elevation. That link, I call it a one-story, I'm sorry, the south elevation. There's a one-story link, which is the service hallway that connects the laundry room side of the house to the kitchen and sort of formal area of the house, is designed as like French doors.
Okay.
Or a look of French doors with transom glass above, and with a low slope copper roof. And what that does is it allows sunlight to come into the garden area. So if we put some boxwoods and some flowers and things in there, they'll actually grow. It also breaks up the mass of the house from the south side. Instead of having one long, massive wall, we have, you know, smaller parts. It's articulated into the rectangular tubes. There's one on the left, there's one on the right, and it's all space in between. So if we go to the pool house elevation, that same architectural design is carried through into the pool house. You see the three-part facade, the center French doors, the two windows on each side, and then columns which project out for a little arbor over the entry of the pool house with the copper roof. So the architecture kind of flows through. The pool house is not some separate element architecturally that sits out there in the backyard. It relates back to the house design. Thanks for bringing that up.
How will that work with the basement? Would there be a basement underneath that garden area, or is it just going to be kind of towards that front entrance?
No,
hallway?
that'll be crawl space under that, under the link. Is that
Under both the link and the garden?
No, there won't be a basement under the garden.
Okay.
Nor under the link.
Okay.
Could you confirm what the finished floor elevation is?
It's, hold on, I just went over that with, Jeff,
This one drawing, it looks like it's showing 671 and top of,
actually, that should be 700.5. That's a typo in the good catch. I just brought that up with Mike today when we were on the site. The grade is, I can remember this is 699 around the house, the new grade, and we're 2 feet above that. We're 6 inches, the foundation comes up 6 inches.
yeah, it says top of foundation 699.5.
Right, and then we come up 18 inches for the finished floor with the structure.
And then you're tying into existing contours and leveling that top area
Correct.
for the home. Okay.
For the home, yeah.
How deep is your basement?
It's probably going to be a 10-foot basement. It'll be 9 or 10 feet.
So you'd have a basement, you've got two sections of the house connected by the garden, and you said there won't be anything under the garden, but under that walkway, there'll be a crawl space.
Yes.
But there'll be a full basement under would be the west section of the house and then the east section of the house, but not the garage. Is that
And
correct?
not the garage, correct.
Okay. So there'll be entrances, stairways down in both sides of those?
No, the only entry into the basement will come from the main entry of the house, or the main stair. Let's go to the...
How do you get from one side of the house, in the basement, from one side to the other?
So the stairway will go up to the second floor, and then it'll go down to the basement.
Okay.
And then this will be basement, you'll be able to walk under here, that'll be basement.
Oh, I thought you said that was crawl space.
No, the service hall.
Oh, okay, okay, I get you, Okay.
There are two, there are two links that link this mass to this mass here. The north link is the formal entry hall. And then the south link is the service hall, which comes from the back side of the house, from the garage and the laundry. So this will be crawl space, and then this will be basement under here and under here. We may, the owner is still deciding whether possibly to make this portion a crawl space as well. But we still have to get into that deep.
Yeah, because you probably need emergency exits on both sides of that. You couldn't depend on going through that walkway. That's not my business, but.
I think we're okay with that.
Okay. You know best, I don't.
But we will.
That's a big basement, I mean, with two sides like that.
I have one more elevational clarification. Over the garage doors, are you going to continue the brick soldier course?
Yes.
Okay, so that's missing
It'll be
on
consistent
elevation.
throughout, yeah.
Okay.
It'll be consistent throughout the house.
Okay. And what's the material of the garage doors?
Of the garage doors?
Yeah.
They'll be wood.
Wood?
Cedar, cedar wood, stained.
Stained, okay.
And you're gonna use the same grayish stain or paint that's been used in the other houses that you have pictures of?
Yeah, let's go back to that. The
Or-
the window trim will be painted,
Okay.
and it'll be painted a warm gray. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then we're gonna, on the doors, the entry doors, there'll probably be a stained entry door. Maybe painted?
Maybe.
Okay.
Standard payment.
And I'm assuming the pool house elevations are mislabeled, or I'm directionally challenged.
Pool house
The
east,
pool house,
east elevation? That faces east.
okay, well, it's
The
labeled
entry-
north on the plans that I have,
Oh,
and then east on the other one. Okay.
the south and north elevations of the pool house will be equal. They'll be the same,
Okay.
equal and opposite.
Okay.
You had mentioned that there's heavy screening on the north property line. And it seems like you're gonna redo the driveway right at that point, which is really tight on that property line. Are you replacing those trees there, or?
Yeah, actually, Dan Horvath is our landscape architect, and we were out there today talking about that. And a lot of that brush is, it's buckthorn? Maybe you want.
Right at the, right where the home is.
Right where-
That north face line, right, that north face.
Where the new courtyard's gonna be.
Exactly.
We're replacing the arborvitaes there with more arborvitaes, pyramidal forms.
Jeff, maybe go to the site.
Okay.
Yeah, those arborvitaes that are there have fallen over from the snow and are really leaning out, so they're taking up a lot of space. So we're just gonna replace them with like kind.
Okay.
Yeah, at the top of the plan there, you see between the two pear trees at the very top edge there, those are all new arborvitaes. Right.
Okay, thank you.
I got a couple questions on the site grading plan. Perhaps we could bring up that. It looks like on the south side of the property, we're going to have some timbers as well as at least two, looks like foot-high stone walls. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit?
Sure. The one that wraps around the east side of the driveway, or the garage apron, and wraps to the south, will start out at 0 on the north side, and as it comes south, it'll probably open up to like 4 or 5 feet tall, and then it'll go back to 0 on the south side again. And what we're planning on doing with that is either landscaping around the wall, like with yews or something like that to soften that edge. And then I believe you're talking about the landscape timbers on the
Yeah, it just notes landscape timbers. And if I could stop you on that, the wall will be, what material is that 12-inch wall?
It'll probably be that interlocking stone landscape wall.
Okay, and then the timbers, and then also you mentioned the stairs or the landscaping grading down to the pool. You mentioned grass steps. Is it truly going to be just grass steps? Yeah, I can't imagine that.
There'll be grass steps with granite risers, which are about 6 inches tall, 6 to 7 inches tall. They did this in the big, Jens Jensen did it in a lot of site plans, back in the early part of the 20th century, where you walk on a grass landing, and then the grade drops 6 inches, and the riser is actually a stone or brick riser, and then you walk another 10 feet or so in grass and step down again. So we're not adding to the imperviousness of the site by doing that. It's a beautiful way of stepping down gradually in a natural way.
It's easier on the bare feet too.
Yeah. You want to just kick your shoes off and go down to the pool.
Thank you.
Is that an existing lift station out there for a storm or?
That's you're talking about the shed? There's a little shed on the site on the north side?
No. For the stormwater, you tying into existing stormwater?
There is not a.
Is that a lift station on the site there? Or
no, it's if you're talking about that square on the south side of the pool, that's going to be we're going to dig a hole. It's sort of like a large French drain, if you will. Mm-hmm. It's about 15 feet by 15 feet, and it's going to go 5 or 6 foot down, and be filled with 3-inch rock. So it'll have 40% of water filtration, and it'll just filter itself into the ground. And we're going to take all the stormwater from the gutters and downspouts and the sump pump, because there is not a storm water drain on the site or near it. And we really can't. There is a storm sewer in Green Bay Road, but it's not deep enough to come from the basement down into the storm sewer.
Do you know what the present condition is?
All the water's dumping onto the ground. So we're going to actually help the issue of water coming down the south side of the property by diverting it over to the west side on the south side of the pool.
One more question on the east elevation. Can you tell me what those 3 small windows are to the right of the garage doors?
The lower windows?
Yes.
That's for the landing for the stairs going down into the basement, because the stair will be an open stair. So there's a landing under the main landing going up to the second floor.
Okay.
So we'll have natural light coming into the staircase below the main staircase.
Okay. Thank you.
Could you kind of do a quick recap for us regarding the reasoning for demolition.
Okay, yeah, let me take up.
And I know that a prior board had approved a demolition, but I'd like to hear a recap of why we think we should demolish this and
Right.
Any possible reuse.
Okay, and I'm sorry I went through that quickly, and it was with no disrespect that I mentioned that a prior board approved it.
No, that's fair.
It was because I wanted to get into the design of the house, so this gives me a few more minutes then to talk about that. The house was built in 1950, and the last report that came in front of the board called it a Cape Cod house, but I would not call it a Cape Cod house. I would call it a ranch house. In architecture school, we called ranch houses ranch burgers because there were so many of them built in the 1950s. So that's what I would call this. It doesn't really have a very big architectural meaning. And the house itself, the structure of the roof is not in accordance with code. There are 2x6 rafters, which we would not be allowed to build a roof like that today with snow loads. The windows would all have to be replaced. There are 8-foot ceilings in the house. So you'd really, in order to expand on the house and look at potential for expansion, you'd have to take the house down to the first floor walls and build up from there. You'd have to take off the roof, take off the second floor, and build up from there, and then try to find ways to expand on the house with different rooms that were, larger bedrooms, a family room, larger kitchen, things like that. And after you would spend the money to do that, the value of the house would still, the design of the house would still be compromised for the dollars that would be spent in order to try to bring it up to date. There's extensive leaking in the basement through the foundation walls. The drain pipes are not working. They're probably clogged after 60 years. So there's a lot of seepage, and since the house has not been occupied for at least 6 or 7 years that I know of, mold is just growing up the entire interior of the basement walls. And as soon as you walk in the door of the house, you can smell that. You can smell the mold.
And when I walk through the house, there's quite a bit of deflection in the walls from years of settling.
I'm sorry, could you please stand up and speak to the microphone? Thank you.
I walked through the house too and noticed quite a bit of deflection in the walls just from years of moisture leaking into the walls. And they're sort of sagging now, and I believe a few windows are caulked shut because it's just, water's pouring in now. So the deflection alone, that's, some structural issues there.
Is there a working sump pump?
The sump pump works, and it also has an emergency pump on it as well. But if it's not taking water from around the entire perimeter of the house, it's only working for those portions where the pipes are coming into the sump pit itself. So basically, there are a number of areas in the basement that are not covered by the drainage system probably because of blockage.
Yeah, the drain tile's probably plugged by now.
Yeah. In the 50s, what they did is they actually brought the downspouts into those drain pipes. And if you can imagine, and eventually those drain pipes didn't work, and they were bringing a lot of water into the basement. So what people did is they took the downspouts and splashed the water onto grade and kind of filled the tops of those pipes with concrete. You probably have seen that in some places. And so, so what happened over time is all those drain pipes were filled with leaves that have just, molded into big obstructions in the pipes themselves. And that's why a lot of those drain pipes don't work anymore. And that would be a big job to try to dig that up around the entire house. It would almost be like putting a new foundation system in it. There's asbestos on some of the pipes in the basement.
Lead paint.
Lead paint. There's and the MEP, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing components are 60 years old, and a lot of those need updating or replaced as well, including the rough-in aspects of that.
did you, so not going any further than those analyses, you didn't try any options for building onto that existing home, is that correct?
Actually, the former, or the former petitioner back in 2005 did a very, very light some light work on that, and it just doesn't work. It would just be too difficult to make that house what it needs to be on this kind of site.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question, sorry, about going back to that kitchen bay that extends out on the south elevation.
Yeah.
And you have the porch on top of it, but yet you can't access it
Right.
from the master bedroom, and the railing and kind of blocks the window from that. Did you consider any other roof forms for that?
Well, we could do a low slope copper roof over it to match the copper roof. It just seemed nice to do I mean, in this case, I mean, architects don't like to do things fake, but this is sort of a Juliet balcony.
Okay.
And it just kind of follows through with the balcony above the family room. But I mean, we could certainly look at a low slope, copper roof over the bay as well.
It's just, all the other elevations are really uniform and consistent, and they make sense in relationship to the interior spaces, except for this kind of area. So I just wondered if you looked at something else. So, okay.
Okay. Do we have any further questions from the board? Okay. At this time, we would allow any public testimony regarding this petition. Okay, seeing none. Does the petitioner have any final comments?
Do we have any final comments?
Okay, thank you. We will then, you may sit down, please.
Okay.
Thank you. We will then take it to the board for final discussion.
Well, I'll start off. I think it's a real plus to the lot. I like the design. I like the brick color and the trim color and all of that. I guess my two concerns are the balcony that Monica just addressed, and the roofing material. I'm voting for slate. I just think it would be much more in keeping with the rest of the style of the house. That's it.
I feel, regarding demolition, I feel they made an excellent case. I did look at the site. House has been vacant since 2005. The windows are shot. I wasn't aware of the rafters, but there's vermiculite up there, which is bad. I mean, there's all kinds of problems. And to try to make that into something that the petitioner wants to live in, he'll dump as much money, if not more. I think they've made a great case for demolition, plus they did in 2005 also. Regarding the design of the new home, I like it. I'm not a mansard roof fan, but because I have one. But at any rate, I know this is French chateau styles and things like that. It doesn't snow in France like it snows here, but good luck. Anyway, that's a personal opinion. I support it.
We can help you build a new house.
I'm in support of the demolition. I think the case was strong, I mean, with the mold in it and just the nature of the house. I'm very much in support of that. And I also compliment the architect and the owners with the proposed home in that it's really not much larger than what the existing house is. The footprint of the replacement structure is you know, fairly similar to what's there. The scale and mass of it is really not much larger, so I think that, you know, that's great. For the most part, I think the architectural style has been consistent throughout. You know, the garage form is a little bit smaller, and the eaves are in proportion to that. And there's those few things that I brought up, you know, just about the, you know, the lintels over the garage. I think it's important to have the consistency between the plans and the elevation. It needs to match. We've had a previous petition where, you know, the plans didn't match the elevation, and then they had to come back in front of the board, and then it was problematic. So I think if the elevation, you know, needs to match the plan. And I find also that east elevation that I kind of brought up, I think there's a lot going on there with the windows flanking the fireplace, but all in all, I think it's nice. And you might want to look at the roof over the kitchen wing. It just seems to me that if you can't walk on it, then why is it there? But other than that, I think it's a great job.
Yes, I think it's a very handsome house. I think they've done a wonderful job. It'll be an exciting addition to that neighborhood, I think. And I agree with the demolition. I think it's definitely warranted in this case. If you can afford it, I'm absolutely a slate guy. I think it would look really nice on there. If you can go that path, I would strongly suggest it, but that's your own preference.
Okay. I think we're hearing some recommendations without qualifying those. Is that correct? Just urgings. Okay, great. Okay. Yes, it was a well-presented petition. Would anyone care to make a motion regarding this petition?
Well, we have to do it in two parts, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I move that we approve the demolition of the existing structure at 320 South Green Bay Road.
I'll second that.
Subject to the, right, okay, that's right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. And we need a motion regarding the replacement structure.
I move that we approve the replacement structure for 320 South Green Bay Road as presented.
Any second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a lovely home. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look nicer with the Slater.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The next item on our agenda is a request for approval of new signage for Abbott, located at 100 South Saunders Road on the south side of Route 60, east of the tollway. The owner is Lake Forest Landmark 2 LLC. Representative is Anna Foote from Corporate Identification Solutions.
Good evening. I'm actually Peggy Kruger from Abbott.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm sorry, your name is Peggy Kruger?
Peggy Kruger.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. I believe all of you are aware September 7th you approved a sign variance, right, for Conway Park. And the property in question where we want to place this larger sign, 100 Saunders, is actually on the south side of Route 60, nearly directly across from the 675 Field Drive location on the north side of the road. Because signage is a power application for the Abbott brand, and because of the close proximity of both 675 Field Drive, governed by the Conway Park signage variance, and the property at 100 South Saunders are in such close proximity to our corporate headquarters, of course we want a very consistent brand experience at those locations. We petitioned Conway Park Owners Association to come to the city to ask for the variance that could be applied to all of the properties at Conway Park That variance allowed us to then install the Abbott signature that includes our symbol and our logotype Abbott. So we wanted that same experience for the building at 100 Saunders. We had hoped that the variance for Conway Park could be applied to the building at Saunders Road since it's in such close proximity, and we submitted size of the sign based on that sign variance that was approved for Conway Park. So you will see that while the recommendation before you is to allow an overall height of 20 inch for sign, we are requesting that the sign be 36 inches in height based on the sign solo cup previously installed. We do understand that that sign was not permitted, but the precedence has been set. The sign has not been remediated in any fashion. So quite frankly, our CEO saw that sign and said, I want a sign equally prominent. In addition, the sign that would appear at Saunders Road is basically, it's in an office park. It is not accessible or visible from any major roadway at all. So placement of a sign of 20-inch height logo on that sign, which won't be seen by any village roads, seems quite small compared to what has been approved for placement at 675 Field Drive, which is an overall height of 18 1/4 inches, and that's on a major roadway. So we respectfully request, based on the difference in square footage available, that we be allowed to use the Conway Park sign variance to determine the size of the sign that can be placed at Saunders Road.
Thank you. Staff, would you please present your report regarding this petition? Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, a couple months ago, the board did hear a request that was put together and presented by the Conway Park Owners Association, not for a variance, but for an adoption of an overall signage plan, an overall campus signage plan, which is permitted by the code. At that time, we did encourage the owner of the separate office development, office complex on the south side of Route 60 to join in that request, and at that time the owner wasn't interested. So that was a request solely presented to you by Conway Park. So at the staff level, we don't have the ability to simply apply those guidelines across the street to a separate development. The code does allow us to bring forward signs with requests for corporate identity symbols to the board, and requests for overall signage that might be larger in size than would normally be approved. So this is before you as a standalone sign. It is a replacement sign in 1998 as part of the overall approval of the development, which at that time was the Opus development. Opus was the owner of both of those buildings. They came forward with a proposal for one sign on Route 60, which would be multi-tenant. That sign is out there today. That was approved specifically without any corporate identity symbols. The board at that time also approved these two signs that are located between the two office buildings. At that time, the board also said no corporate identity symbols on those signs. Given the discussion and the approval of the guidelines for Conway Park, it seemed appropriate to bring this forward to you for discussion. To be clear, the Solo Cup sign is in violation. It was neither approved by the board nor put up with the permit. We have a zoning code enforcement issue going on with that particular property owner and business owner. That sign will need to come down or will need to come before this board to get approval, and it will go be assessed the appropriate fines and be taken before the administrative hearings official. So that sign should not be looked to as a precedent. Again, it certainly could come before you in the future, and if you chose to approve that. So as staff looked at this, again, we believe that the request for a corporate identity symbol is appropriate, given that you recently had that discussion, but that the overall size of that identity symbol, as well as the size of the lettering, really needs to fit with the existing sign that was already approved. So from the staff perspective, we really looked at appropriate size lettering to allow that lettering to fit appropriately on that sign surface, to allow appropriate void surface space to be exposed above the lettering and below the lettering as well. So with that, we are proposing that some reduction in lettering occur. We did offer specific dimensions as a recommendation, but we would also recommend that we work with the petitioners to actually look at a mock-up of the specific size to make sure the lettering and the graphic are appropriately sized for that face of the sign. With that, staff recommends approval with that condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. At this time, we will bring it to the board for questions to staff or the petitioner.
I guess I could start. I have a couple questions of staff on the current monument sign that was permitted in 1998. It says that the sign that's out there exceeds the maximum allowable square footage. It's 118 versus 100. Was it the 1998 approval for 100 and it just got built too large?
I believe that that specific sign at that size was approved at that time. There were a number of variances granted for the Opus buildings. I think signage was one of them. Setback, building height, there were, it was part of an overall discussion. So the approved size was constructed on the site.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have at this moment.
If I may add a couple of comments. The owner of the Saunders building was under the impression, I spoke with him this evening, that the signs didn't require permitting because they were not in public view. That's how he interpreted the sign code, right, wrong, or otherwise. That those signs were not in view of the public because you cannot see the granite monuments from the road at all, from Route 60 or even Saunders Road. Quite frankly, you have to drive into the complex. The only people that would see those signs are those traveling to that destination. In addition, he did in fact approve the larger sign face. So if there, I don't know if that letter was included with the packet, but Charlie Gross did in fact approve the larger, the 36-inch high sign.
I have a question for the petitioner. Your dimensions, you're requesting the Abbott A be 36 inches?
Correct, 36.
With their lettering of 20 inches?
Lettering of 18.
Of 18.
Mm-hmm. So we have there, we would have a total proposed sign square footage of 21.94 square feet on an available area of the 118.75. And again, the sign that will be placed at Conway Park, we have a total square footage of 10.31 on a sign face of 21.38 square feet. So when you look at the size of that granite or that entire sign face versus what we have at Conway Park, there is, you know, a bit of a disparity in only allowing a 20-inch high logo on that larger sign face versus what we have across the street.
And with the Abbott, at present, it's Abbott Nutrition, you're dropping nutrition.
We're dropping nutrition so that we have the ability to have employees of other of our lines of business reside in that building.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What's the current height of Abbott A on the existing sign?
I believe 50 inches, Mike, do you have the existing one?
It's,
15.
And then the Abbott, you know, where it says Abbott.
The
and
logo type
Nutrition.
Abbott would be, those would be 0.42, the height, so roughly, that's 15? A little under 7.5 inches
So the
for both
exist-
Abbott and Nutrition.
So the existing sign, the Abbott A, is what staff is recommending the proposed Abbott A side height to be.
20 inches they were proposing, so
Okay,
another
yeah, but the-
slightly larger.
But the lettering for Abbott itself is smaller than what staff is recommending.
Yes,
And
what was recommended for letter height, we have signage standards that we employ globally, again, to create this consistent brand experience. And when we just have Abbott as part of the sign, we don't have one of our lines of business, that height is half the height of the symbol. So Abbott would only be 7.5 inches based on our standard, which is why we're trying to drive to that larger size sign as well,
Oh, I
because,
see.
to make it more visible. So with a 36-inch high logo, Abbott then becomes 18 inches.
So if the Abbott A was 20.
It's
Abbott
only going to be 10, right?
Staff, could you review your recommendations for the sizing of those?
The graphic as proposed by the petitioners is 36 inches, the standalone graphic. As we went out there, measured what was there, looked at the overall sign, we do agree that the lettering there, which we believe to be about 14 inches, the lettering there does seem a bit small on that large surface of the sign. We are recommending that the graphic should be no taller than 20 inches in comparison to the 36 which they propose. And we are recommending that the lettering be no taller than 16 inches. So the lettering would be larger than the lettering that's currently on that sign. But with those sizes, there would be, above the graphic, above the 20-inch graphic, there would be space, surface of the sign visible to really allow that graphic to set on the sign without feeling like it's coming off the top or not really having an appropriate surface on which to set. But we would also acknowledge that maybe the 20 inches and the 16 inches isn't exactly right. But if that general consensus of making sure there's enough space at the top and at the bottom to allow the graphic and the lettering to appropriately settle on the sign, you could approve it and allow staff to work with the petitioner, looking at a mock-up to adjust those by a few inches either way if that was appropriate.
Okay, because as was stated by Ms. Kruger, their logo would only allow the lettering to then be half that, to keep in, that's part of their whole logo thing. So taking it down to 20 inches would only allow the lettering to be 10 inches tall.
And remember, our code doesn't encourage corporate identity symbols, so this is an exception. And it might be that those proportions are appropriately adjusted because there's the flexibility being allowed by the board. So it may be that you want to shift those proportions given that you're taking the step of allowing the symbol, which previously for this location and for all of Conway Park was not permitted at all. So it's taking that first step in allowing those corporate identity symbols, but doing it in a way that is still consistent with the overall intent to have fairly simple signage and done in an elegant way without over-commercialization.
Thank you, Kathy.
Another question for the petitioner. What you're saying is your corporate logo calls for the Abbott A logo and the word Abbott at half of that size?
Correct. What we refer to the logo type, the letters, Abbott, spelling of that, is half the height of the symbol.
And this is what you would like, okay.
Yeah, it's our standard globally, so we don't alter that location to location.
Okay.
To create, again, that consistent brand experience. What that allows us to do is then, as we add, where we have businesses like you see with the nutrition or diagnostics, what's being installed at Conway Park, as that element is added to the bottom, you still have that consistent experience with the symbol and Abbott.
Okay.
I would note that the address, the 100, the 100, those are 12-inch letters, so the letters could be 12, and if they wanted to remain consistent, the logo could be 24. So that would be addressing the concern of having them appropriately located on the side, but also respecting their interest in having the lettering be exactly half of the corporate identity symbol.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any further questions? Okay. At this time, we would allow public testimony regarding this petition. Seeing none. Do you have any final comments?
Again, I would just request that we have something closer to our 36-inch height based on the location of this sign being basically at a dead end. Given the allowance that has been made for Conway Park, while that has not been applied to the south side of the road, we do believe that it is appropriate for it to be applied because, again, it's in a office park area. It's in a basically an area that's not seen publicly from a major roadway. And it would be important for us to have a greater prominence than a 24-inch high logo would allow.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will take it to the board for discussion, final discussion. I can start with, I think that maybe the 20 was a little small, so maybe going up to the 24 would be a little more appropriate, given the size of the numbers.
I think that the 36 seems to be overscaled to me, and I like the recommendation that Kathy suggested with considering maybe a 24-inch with the lettering about the same size as the address, or something in that range.
Right, yeah, because clearly the numbers are easily visible.
I think with the 36-inch sign, you only leave a little over 5 inches at the bottom and the top. It just seems like it's too large.
I agree 100%. I think the 36 is, I would not be in favor of that at all. I feel the 24 and 12 would be, I think, would be adequate. It may not be what Abbott wants, but 36 in my mind is out of the question.
Go ahead.
I agree with the 24 and 12.
I agree 36 is too big. I wonder if 24, I don't know if 24 is a magical number. I know we try to get uniformity with the address numbers. Is that what we're trying to achieve, or could we say 30 inches and 15? I mean, I don't know why 24 is, unless you want to match the numbers. I understand 36 is too big, but I would almost say that I like Kathy's suggestion. Maybe you have the staff go out there and, you know, at their discretion, smaller than 36, but, you know, maybe you could have a mock-up at 30 and 15 or something, take a look. How does it look? How does it feel, et cetera? Because I do understand Abbott wants to have as big a presence as possible, and I certainly like a tenant like Abbott in Lake Forest, a company like that. So,
Kathy, is the current numbering that size, or is that a proposed change?
The current address on the sign is 12 inches.
Okay.
We did have our sign vendor render a 33-inch high logo with a 16-inch logo type, so you could see what that would look like. That does leave a little bit more breathing room. We would obviously like, to your point, for the logo type, the Abbott portion of that letter to be larger than the address, because that should be of more significance. I do have copies of that, if we may present that.
Well, I understand why the name and the logo is of more significance. It's such a large sign that there's a fair amount of separation that I don't think that they don't necessarily have to be one, that much different. But I think that the 100 on the existing sign is significant.
It is.
It's large. There's enough separation that you don't have to necessarily say, I have to be bigger than that. But to your point, is there a magic number? Not necessarily. I think it might be something that a mock-up would be worthy of.
Yeah, 28 and 14 or 30 and 15.
Right.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. I think we're of a consensus that 36 is too big.
Right.
And maybe 24 and 12 is a little small.
Possibly.
Possibly. And so I guess my feeling would be 30, 28, 30, somewhere like in there.
Right. So maybe we can, as was suggested, have staff render a decision based on a mock-up in the field.
I think that when you approach the building, you're taking that roadway and it's taking you directly to both of those signs. So it's not like you're looking at it from a long distance away. You're driving to that intersection and you have those two signs right there. So, how big does it need to be?
Okay. Is that something staff would be comfortable with, or what would you prefer?
Yes, if you give us, we've heard that 36 is too large.
Okay.
I think, as we measured it, the solo cup is 22 solo cup letters. So that might be something we want to look at too, since that was not approved.
But the overall height of that, Kathy, is, I think, 36 and a half, the logo with the letter solo. There's this.
But that will need to come down
From
and come
top of them.
before.
Yeah.
So obviously, we want to be careful not to
Right.
measure it against something that has not been approved and has not been permitted. But yes, I think we've heard your direction that 36 is too large, that 24 may be too small, and that we should look at appropriate proportions, maybe 28, 30, and look at how it sets on the sign, looking more at the overall design and product, but also being sensitive to not over-commercializing, consistent with the intent of our sign code. Understated signage is very clearly the direction of our sign code. So this is going beyond that, but to do it sensitively.
Okay. That being said, unless we have further discussion regarding it, I think we could take it to a motion. All right, who's willing to summarize that for us?
Okay, I'll try it. I move that.
Stuart.
I move that we turn the sizing over to staff and giving them final approval, agreeing that 36 inches for the logo is too high, 24 may be too small. It could be somewhere between those, and that they would want the word Abbott laid out at half of the scale of the logo. And the staff should work with the petitioner, perhaps with a mock-up, to come up with something that they feel is agreeable and meets the signage codes.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dump that.
At this time, it's the opportunity for the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Hearing none. Our next item would be any additional information from staff.
At this point, we do believe you will have a December meeting. We believe we will have some items, and that meeting is the regular date, which is December 7th.
Okay.
Okay,
Pearl Harbor Day.
that's right. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Never do that.